Would change and what we would see if we open the eyes of our heart. But that's a lesson for another day. Today we conclude the 5 invitations, and I will speak only for myself when I say this book and these 5 invitations has really made a pretty big impact on me as I think through them and try to apply them in my life. Back 5 weeks ago, we started with don't wait. And remember I told you that I had that nudge of spirit to take a tea bag with me to brunch, right? And I didn't. And the restaurant had no tea bags. So someone who had heard that gifted me a tea bag wallet. So I shall never be without tea bags again. Thank you, Joseph. Yes. And I love it. What a great way to always be prepared. So it was follow those nudges and don't wait. Follow them instantly. Trust them and live fully from them. The second invitation was to welcome everything and push away nothing. Oh, I had the unique experience of living that very thing this week. As many of you have met my pup, Rosie. And this week was Rosie's time to make her transition. And, part of me wanted to push that away. Part of me wanted to, say, please don't go, sweet girl. Stay a little longer. I love having you here. But no, Rosie had to go. And as I welcomed that process and sat with her for Monday and Tuesday and most of Wednesday, it called me to not push away anything, not push away the tears, not push away the sadness, not push away the idea that Rosie was going on to live her soul journey. And I knew that Rosie was going to be fine. She was going to be A-okay. And as she would, I had arranged for hospice to come to help her cross that rainbow bridge. But she didn't wait. She did it on her terms, in her way, at her time. And I got to be there and bear witness to that beautiful soul and that experience. So by not pushing away anything and by welcoming everything, a truly sacred experience rose for me, and I believe for Rosie too. So don't push away anything. Welcome it all. It's all part of the richness and fiber of life, all of it. The next invitation was to bring your whole self to the experience. Don't leave any part out, none of it. And I notice that when I bring my whole self to the experience, I'm able to be so much more present to what people are experiencing, what stories people are telling about their life, and how it unfolds, and I'm able to feel more deeply. So by bringing our whole self, it's honoring that namaste spirit that we acknowledge each other, all of each other. So take your whole self into everything you do. And then do the hokey pokey, remember? Yeah. And then the fourth invitation was to find a place of rest in the middle of things. And some of you know I take extended silent retreats at Abbey of Gethsemane. If I can't get to any of those places, I just go sit on my back porch and do a little back porch sitting. And there's nothing that gives me rest in that time. And if I can't do either of those things, then I just sit in my sofa and watch the birds and the squirrels outside. And if I can't do any of those things, I just sit and breathe and find rest in the midst of anything. And we all have that way of finding rest, right? Sometimes it's to escape. What if we can't do those things? What if we're in the middle of grocery shopping or in our day of work and we find ourselves all worked up and excited about something going on? How do we find rest then? How do you find rest in those moments? Just breathe. Remember our breath. It's always there with us. It's always taking us inward to center. So follow that breath. And today, don't know mind. Cultivate. Because a don't know mind is a mind that's open. A mind that's receptive. Now, I don't know about you, but as I journey this life, I find that the older I get, the less I know. And that doesn't have anything to do with what I don't remember or not. It says I just don't know some things. There's many things that I believe. And there's many things that I think. But what do I really know? So this I don't know mind is not limited by any of our agendas, any of the roles we fill in life, teacher, mother, student, nurse, whatever we do, our don't know mind isn't limited by that. And it's not limited by our expectations of life, for our life. It's free. A don't know mind is free to explore anything. It's free to discover whatever there is to discover. And when we're filled with knowing, when we're certain about our knowledge, when we're fixed and our mind is made up, it narrows our vision. It narrows and limits our capacity to move in our world. To move in our world with flexibility. And doesn't our world ask a great deal of flexibility from us? Daily. Yes. It allows us to move in our world without judgment. Without judging ourselves, without judging each other, and without judging the experiences of life as good or bad, right or wrong, you name it. And that don't know mind allows us to move and travel and navigate our world without judgment of the other. And we only see what our knowing allows us to see. So we don't abandon our knowledge. We don't give up it. It's always there. It's always hanging out in the background of our mind. Because we might need it from time to time. But we let go of the intractability of not being willing to change our mind and become fluid, to allow new adventures to shift our way of thinking, to allow new information to change us from one viewpoint to another. And we let go of control. We let go of control. And if you think you don't have much need for control in your life, notice when things don't go the way you planned. Perhaps the car notifies you that you're about to run out of gas and you're on a highway somewhere. Notice. Notice when the utensils or the dishes are not put into their proper place by your housemate. Just notice. Notice what moves along in you. And notice that time that you leave a tissue in the pocket of your pants and toss them in the laundry. Notice. Oh, yeah, you've done that, huh? Notice what happens, those feelings that come. And from our very first experience in life, we are rewarded for knowing. We're rewarded for our knowledge, first with our colors, with the alphabet, with the numbers. We get cheers when we can recite that as toddlers. And remember the accolades when we could recite all of the presidents and all of the states, and the extra cheers when we knew their capitals. We've been rewarded well. We're groomed to know things. Our value sometimes rests in how many things we know. We're expected to be sure and to be certain and to be confident in our knowledge. So Frank tells this story of a night before he was scheduled for open heart surgery. And he was sitting with his 26-year-old son, Gabe. And they were having a really heartfelt conversation. They were reminiscing over the funny moments in life, the adventures they shared, the love of father and son. And at one point, Gabe looked at his father, Frank, and asked, "Dad, are you going to live through this surgery?" For his son that everything was just fine, he paused. And in that pause, as he was trying to formulate an articulate, reassuring answer, the words flew out of his mouth. "I'm not taking any side. I'm not taking any side." Now, the answer surprised Frank and his son. But what Frank meant was he wasn't taking sides of life or death. Either way, Frank had confidence. He was assured and believing that everything was just fine, regardless of the outcome of his surgery. He knew, and those were the words that came out of him without being censored. Ironically, both Frank and Gabe, his son, were very reassured by those words because they both knew that they were words of truth, not taking any sides, and knowing that whatever everything truly was, just fine. They knew it. And in our human world, we have a great reverence for reason, making sense of things, connecting our clear thinking with our competency, assigning value based on our knowledge. How many people have been promoted because they've amassed a certain amount of knowledge that they could then carry on and do the next step in their life career? We hold truth and wisdom and knowledge to be of great value. And sometimes our memory, our knowledge of an experience, live the same experience. You were both there at the same time, same place, and yet how you remember it is very different. It's probably led to more than one argument in a family, and time moves and our memories shift. We tend to remember good things. We also remember some not so good things. But it's how we tell our story becomes less reliable for the facts as time goes on. Yet it is that forgetfulness that allows us to take an experience of our life, take those broken pieces of life, and reassemble them to produce something of wholeness. And remember, wholeness is taking all of the equation, the love, the hate, the good, the bad, the chaos, and the order, welcoming all of that so we can make whole stories. So we can welcome the happy with the sad, the hurts with the learning, and the entirety of ourself, leaving nothing out, leaving nothing behind. So these 5 invitations serve as mutually supported principles by which we can live, that can permeate our lives with love. They're practices that can grow deeper and richer as we live them in our life. They can serve as reliable guides in coping with our life and all the many aspects of our life. And finally, they're relevant guides to living life fully, living it from our fullness, from our truth, and wholly, completely, and with integrity. So to be understood, they need to be lived to realize. Just as our fifth unity principle says, our unity principles are to be lived in the world. And so these practices, these invitations are as well. So cultivate a don't know mind. And in Scripture we know Matthew 18 tells us, the disciples came to Jesus saying, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus called a child and invited them to come and stand beside him and said, I tell you the truth, unless you turn around and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Unless you become one like this child. Whoever then humbles themselves like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Like a child. Whoever comes like a child. Think of children running around the playground. Think of the laughter. Think of the joy. Think of the unbridled, abandoned energy as they move from one place to another. So we come with a posture of humbleness, not knowing everything, giving up what we know. We come with a heart of innocence, letting go of anything that may have bruised or hurt our hearts. And we come with a mind of openness so that we can receive what the universe, what the world has to share with us. So cultivating a don't know mind allows us to put aside the into a hospital volunteer office. He wanted to be a volunteer. Now, he didn't look like a typical hospital volunteer. He was young, he had long hair with streaks of orange and green in them. He had tattoos up his arms, on his legs. He had piercings in his ears, in his nose, and in his cheek. So he was not a typical hospital volunteer. And the volunteer coordinator said, well, fill out this application. And if we have anything that's appropriate for you, we'll call you. Feeling very dismissed, he walked out feeling very dejected, and he happened to run into Frank. And Frank saw his body language and said, hey guy, what's up? I said, well, I don't think there's a place here for me to volunteer, and I really want to volunteer. I want to help people feel better. So Frank inquired, what is it that you want to do? Well, he is a filmmaker of all things, and he wanted to make videos of all the people in the hospital by asking one question. If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go right now? Well, Frank thought that was a very safe thing for this young man to do, and he invited him to go with him to visit all of his patients. And as he did, the young man videoed a small segment of each of the patients sharing where they would want to go. And it was amazing because it was back to their high school. It was to reconnect with a friend, to have one more dance. Very simple, humble things. And at the end, the young man showed the video to all of the patients, and they got to see themselves, and they got to hear the dreams of where each other would want to go. So this young man, judged at first, had this wonderful gift to share with all of the patients of the hospital. So it moves us from not judging others, not judging ourselves, and we, of all things, when we're moving in this I don't know mind, we're in a space of surrender. Now, I don't know about you, but Surrender has always been a challenging word for me. It felt like giving up, stopping, acquiescing to whatever else was happening. And I always had a hard time with that until I read these words from Frank. He said, surrender is not the same as letting go. Normally, we think of letting go as release, often accompanied by a sense of freedom from what it was that we released. And our burning bowl ceremony that we do annually is a ritual around that, releasing, setting something aside and feeling free. These are the words that had the greatest impact on me. Surrender, Frank said, is more about expansion. Surrender is about expansion. I don't know about you, but that I couldn't wrap my head around. Expanding. And there's a freedom in surrender, but it's not really about setting something down or distancing ourselves from an object, person, or experience as it is with letting go. With surrender, we are free because we have expanded into the spaciousness, the boundless quality of being that can include, but isn't limited to, beliefs that we once put aside. The visual that came for me about surrender was an immense opening. Immense, infinite opening. That spaciousness that has no boundaries, no end, no beginning. It was the infinite possibilities for me, where previously surrender felt like constraint for me. So allow that word surrender to be expanding for you as well. Surrender means moving in the flow. It happens with life. Have you ever done that? Really resisted and fought against what really wanted to happen in life. Surrender is a way of being in which resistance of any kind no longer exists. We no longer put up our defenses. We have no need for defenses. And when we surrender, we're moving deeply, very deeply into the qualities of faith, the quality of love, the quality of conviction, spiritual conviction. We're moving into confidence by wisdom acquired, by what we believe. It doesn't have to be about what we know, but about what we believe. And it's moving, surrender is moving in a sense of awe and wonder. That is surrender. Frank says that surrender is infinitely deeper than letting go. Letting go is a strategy of our mind that's occupied with the past. Letting go of something that happened, something that we did, something that another did. Letting go is you or me making a choice. Surrender, on the other hand, is effortless. Surrender is simply non-doing. It's simply becoming aware. The ritual, which is indispensable, is the dispensable is sacrificed for the essential. Let me say that again. Surrender is the dispensable, is sacrificed for the essential. So what we don't need in life just drifts away. It's the end of something, leaving an opening for something new. So as you hear these invitations and as you take them into your heart, as you practice them, remember always to let all that you do be done with love. And so it is.